Alright, so last video y'all saw this third gen Camaro I picked up for $646 exact. It's a long story, but guy bought it from us super nice. We went over it, came up with a deal, and with the amount of work that's been done to it, it's definitely worth more than that just as a roller. It could easily have gone for 1,500, $1,000, you know. But the interior, when I got the car, was pretty musty. As you can see, a lot of the windows are real fogged up, you know, windows cracked, which I can take care of. As you can see though, all the floor and everything's been pulled out. So what I was thinking we could do today is pull these seats out, and start sanding everything. Sand it all, mask some stuff off, get some rust remover for some of this light surface rust on here. I don't know if y'all can see. It's really light surface rust, no deep pitting, no holes in the floor. There's a little bit of light surface rust starting to come onto the roll cage. It's just stuff like that. It's a little bit worrying. I don't want it to get worse as it sits, because obviously this build's not going to be overnight. It takes time, so we're gonna run to Home Depot, get some rust remover, get some cleaning supplies to clean out this inside of it, of the interior, and then I think we're gonna primer it matte black, just that way if I do decide to make it a nice glossy color in here in the future, it's just primer, so it'll be all one color. The metal will be protected, and it'll actually look a little bit nicer in here too. So that's probably gonna be the goal for today. So let's see. I think we're gonna roll on over to the Home Depot. I haven't decided on whether or not we're gonna take the Mustang or the truck. Probably the truck, but yeah. Alright, so me and my little brother were vacuuming out this car. I'm using a wire wheel to get some of this big rust off. Alright, so we're sanding, and a little bit of time with the orbital sander, you're starting to see metal again. We're trying to get through this rust. My little brother's sanding the roll cage, doing a pretty good job so far. We're just trying to roughen up the surface. We're using 220 right now. Stepped it up to 320 just now. So there's a little bit of like a warping in this metal. Whoever did the mini tub, I guess it's when you're burning this stuff in, it's pretty easy for metal to warp because it gets so hot. But that's okay. This is really just kind of like a backyard job, just to try and keep it from rusting in the future, and just make sure that, you know, things last a little bit longer than they probably would without being painted. So we're still working on figuring out how to get some of this insulation out of this floorboard. We're having a lot of trouble getting this stuff out because it's just super glued on here. So our goal is to hopefully get just the back half of the car in primer, and maybe even actual color, but the front end is going to take a little bit more time because we got so many weird angles. Probably a lot of it's going to have to be done by hand, but over here it's all pretty flat surfaces, so shouldn't take too long. Alright, so we just put some rust remover on here to try and get more of the bare metal showing. Right now we're just going to primer, like I said, the back half from the beginning of the roll cage back to the tail of the car. So that's all our goal is for tonight. We're starting to lose some daylight, but still nice and cool outside, not too hot, not too cold. Perfect weather for some paint. So we're gonna shoot some gray primer in here after this rust remover is finished up, brake clean everything, use some acetone to clean up the surfaces, and then we should be ready to shoot finally. Alright, so we've used the rust remover, went ahead and used some brake clean to get that stuff off so that way we didn't burn anything. And now we're using some acetone, and we're just wiping it down, getting it ready for some light primer. The sun's going down, so we're gonna have to hurry up and shoot this stuff. But I got some masking paper. I'm gonna start taping off things, even though this window's already super clouded from God knows what. We're just gonna try and keep things from getting spray paint on them that don't need it. So, all right. Yep, so we've pretty much sprayed the left side. I might do another coat on there, but we're working on the right side here. I don't know, it looks like it's laying pretty smooth. I'm not seeing a ton of like ripples or anything in the paint. I'm definitely gonna go over it with like at least some 300 grit, just to smooth it out a little bit, because if you look over here, when I use that rust remover stuff, you can see the brush strokes from the paintbrush when I was painting it on there. Other than that, it actually looks fairly decent. I bought some Goo Gone to try and help get rid of this stuff, like this floor mat residual, like, I don't even know what you would call that stuff, but that stuff is impossible to get up. I've got a razor blade and I'm barely able to get the corners of it off, so I'm gonna work on that after I get this done, and then hopefully I can start to sand where the seats would go and towards the front of the car, so I can actually get all that shot. And I also need to sand the roof. I don't know if you can see that well, yeah. Which, I don't know. It looks like it might have some bad pitting in it, but I don't know. We'll see if maybe like a 220 grit and then maybe 320 grit. It's hard to find the higher grits for the orbital sanders, so I might have to get like a sanding block or something. But then again, it doesn't have to be perfect in here. Just trying to prevent any more rust, you know, because right now the floor is in fairly okay shape. So, all right. Okay, so I think it looks fairly decent with the primer in here. There's a little bit of like spotty coverage as far as like primer coats goes, but I think it did fairly decent. I'll paint the quarter panel sides and stuff like that here in a little bit. I'm not too worried about that now. I didn't clean them with the acetone when I was prepping the surface, so now that we got that done, what I'm working on now is getting these stupid mats out. I've tried using some Goo Gone, just the spray, and not having too much luck. So what I'm going to do is try and get a wire wheel out and really just go to town on that and see if I can at least strip up the ones in the front, so hopefully we don't get too much dust in the back while the paint's drying. But yeah. Okay, so I've gotten this one pretty scraped up. Well, not fully scraped up, but I don't know if y'all can see that on film or on the screen. There's like a little plate underneath these things, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna remove the whole thing or if I'm just gonna remove. I'm undecided. I think I might leave those because I can't really get much of it up. I'll just have to paint around them maybe. We'll see how. I'm gonna start sanding with some 120 grit to kind of get some of this rough rust stuff up with the orbital sander and see how that does. And if it does a good job at taking that goo off, then I don't know, but I don't expect it to. The wire wheel I was using really was struggling to get that stuff off, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so I just finished vacuuming out the front. I pretty much, I did a 100 grit with the orbital sander on most of the stuff, and as far as I can feel, it feels smooth, so I don't expect it to show through the paint too much. But these little like insulation things, as I mentioned before, they cover. There's like a little plate here that this covers for whatever reason. But the problem is this goo is like impossible to get up. I did my best to get it off over here, and I only got maybe a quarter of it off. So I'm gonna just leave it, I guess. It might look shitty, but if it does, I mean, this isn't the only interior paint job that, you know, I'll be getting in the. I can always redo it in the future because this stuff is like a paint primer mix. So I could probably sand it down and then respray it if I needed to. So right now I'm gonna vacuum everything out one more time, get some acetone, just kind of wipe everything down, make sure all the surfaces are clean, and I'm gonna paint the floor and the roof. I did sand that as well. It was a really thick kind of surface rust, but I went with like a 100 grit and then a 220 grit, so the roof is very smooth now. So and I'm gonna also touch up the back part because most of the stuff I did yesterday was just wheel well and roll bar. So that's what we're looking at. Okay, so we got the interior painted and the roof painted a little bit. It's not turning out as good as I'd like it to, but it's really just, like I said, I keep saying it over and over, just keep it from rusting, and just kind of clean it up a little bit because it was getting kind of rough in here, but this will help. So now I'm sanding some of the trunk area because the floor, I mean, it's not going to be all that smooth already just because the orbital sander can't really do a great job, and I don't want to spend 20 hours sanding a floor, so I'm just going to make it work. But here's where we're at. All right, so I just finished sanding, and then I took some acetone to everything in the back area. I think it's getting dark, so I'm just gonna end up doing the trunk area for tonight, and then I'll do the front, finish that up, in probably next weekend actually. But anyways, so I'll do a before and after with the black spray paint. All right, so this left side looks like it's turning out pretty good. Um, I don't know, the coverage is looking good, but obviously it's gonna be not perfect because, you know, I didn't do like a professional level job. This is just rattle can, just to make it, you know, look a little bit halfway decent, I guess. But this wheel well, I mean, it doesn't look terrible. The bar doesn't look bad. There are some spots towards like the corners that have kind of like a lot of welds and stuff that are not that great, but everything else is looking fairly decent. All right, so we got the back of the Camaro painted, but it's getting so late. I'm gonna just pick up next weekend and finish the front. I'm a little bit worried about it like kind of flash rusting, but it's gonna be in the garage, so hopefully nothing will happen. But even if it does, it'll just be a little bit of, you know, sanding, and it should be fine. Back to normal. So, all right. All right, so it's the following weekend. Finally able to get around to finishing spraying the entire car. I don't know. I think the backside turned out really nice. The paint is nice and reflective. There's not really too many high or low spots. You can kind of see one right there, I guess. But I mean, the backside turned out okay. The roof, you can see the streaks in it from the paint can, but I don't know. It doesn't look half bad. Anyways, so that's pretty much it for this episode on the 3rd Gen Camaro. What we can do next is we have two options. We can either start being all aesthetic and start dealing with engine bay, body panels, and all that stuff while it's kind of doesn't have an engine or anything in it, or we can jump the gun like I always do and what I have done with the Mustang and just throw a big engine in it and say, oh, whatever, it's good. Start learning or figuring out the logistics. I'm kind of teetering on the side of I probably could do a lot of paint work with this car, since it is such a straight car. The doors shut nice. The body lines line up pretty nice. I mean, they're not, well, I guess they're a little bit off, but I don't know. It's a good candidate for trying to strip all the paint off and work from the ground up and do a nice paint job, but I'm just happy to have done at least something with the interior. I'll probably put up a little before and after shot, just so that way y'all can see what, you know, we started from, because this took a couple of days, but, you know, made it a lot nicer. So if y'all are trying to build some kind of stripped out Pro Street, or, you know, just something for some sort of cash days, I don't know, this is probably a good way to make it look halfway decent if you're just being lazy. So there you go.